college is not the end all be all. It really should be, what do you want out of your life? What do you want out of your career? And how is college going to help you do that? I can get the technology that they're going to be working with, and I can get, some of the responsibilities that they're going to have. But, where are they going to sit in the work? What does success look like? Blameless postmortems, right? And the idea is you have some sort of problem that goes wrong with the system, and, you get all the engineers together to retro it. It's not about finding someone to blame and making that person feel bad. It's really trying to diagnose and understand the problem. I think the single most important thing for me when it comes to culture is the ability to say no or to raise objections.
Hi all, good morning. So today I have James with us, who understood the purpose of the Great Resignation before it even started. During the Great Resignation period, people took a step back, understood what they wanted, and they realized that they wanted something more, just more than just compensation. Purpose, values, and understanding how one can contribute to a bigger cause became important for people, which is what James likes to deep dig into. He understands that people and culture are the most important parts of winning businesses, and he tries to make sure that the companies that he works for gets that exactly. Let's welcome James on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where he will speak about what he's learned along the way, why purpose and culture are important for the successes of businesses. Hi, James. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Minal?
Good, James. So, James, can you tell me what got you into recruitment in the first place?
Oh man, this is a little bit of a long story, and I'll try to be quick with it.
Okay.
But basically, my passion early on in life was rowing. I ended up getting recruited to college, rowed through college and for the U.S. national team afterwards. Unfortunately, in professional rowing, there's not a lot of money, and so you kind of have to pay to play. And so I did a lot of coaching and a lot of tutoring, a lot of college career advisement through my time as a professional athlete. And a lot of that was, helping kids find their purpose so that they can get into college. So that's a big thing that I think a lot of young students don't understand, is that, college is not the end all be all. It really should be, what do you want out of your life? What do you want out of your career? And how is college going to help you do that? And I think kind of thinking about that and that mindset is really critical. And when I ended my professional career and I was looking to transition more into the business world, recruiting, I did a lot of searching, but recruiting really resonated with me. It's the main goal of a recruiter is really to find a good match, and not just from the company's perspective of, we need someone with the right skills and the right mindset and the right experience, but also from the candidate's perspective. Am I going to be at a company where, I have the chance to learn and grow and be challenged and well compensated, and I'm going to have, a good experience. And I think that the best hires are when, both sides are in alignment and getting what they want, out of that relationship. And, it kind of really reflected from, how I had approached, students in colleges. And so I was very lucky. I had a friend of a friend who was the co-founder of a company called Cherry, the real estate data company. And, I had known Ben, one of their co-founders, for a couple of years, and I let him know, hey, I'm looking to get into recruiting. And he's like, well, that's really, coincidental, because, we're looking to start an internal recruiting team here at Cherry. And so I kind of came on board and, within a few months kind of was up to speed and led all of their HR and recruiting functions for the business up until the pandemic. We had a lot of success. We grew the company, I think, 3 or 4 times the size. So, great success there. And the company's still doing fantastic. But, after the pandemic, during the pandemic, didn't really make sense. They didn't want to do any hiring there. And so, I went on my own journey, has been working at a few different startups here and there, but more recently looking to, just starting my own company focused on helping people find their ideal careers. I think that goal setting mentality is really key. And so doing, consulting around recruiting and applications for candidates as well.
That is super inspiring, James. I think it's absolutely wonderful how you started off with something that you're passionate about, realized that, okay, it does not make a lot of money. So you decided to go help people, and here you are starting your own company, which will be centered around that. So it's very inspiring, because I think the first step is the hardest to take, and you've already done that. So I hope and wish you all the success when it comes to starting up your own business. My next question, James, would be, there's been a war for the best talent these days. You've seen that going on. A lot of companies are hiring, especially when it comes to competing with bigger companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Atos. Smaller companies find it hard. So how do you think smaller companies can navigate through in order to attracting the best talent at the end of the day when it comes to competing with the bigger companies?
That's a great question.
And
Um,
just to add, James is a meme specialist. So as I'm like, I love that. Keep that going, James. Would love to see more.
yeah, eventually I'm going to finish my video that explains how to do it because it's not too hard to get the memes up. But
Oh, okay.
for smaller companies, I think it's difficult, right? Because to your point, that you are competing with all of these really big giants, and typically you're not going to be able to win on the dimension of compensation, and so you have to find something else that's going to be appealing. But I think, to your point earlier, we were talking about how, people really are no longer caring about compensation as the prime factor. They really want a job experience that is going to be fulfilling. It's going to be interesting and engaging. And I think that is something that small businesses can really take advantage of and lean into. If you are working on that, as a business, if you're trying to provide a solution or a product to the market that's interesting and exciting, that's a huge draw. If you have a great team of really smart people who are, tackling these kind of interesting problems, that's usually a very big draw. Um, if you're giving people autonomy and freedom in their work to apply their knowledge in a way that makes sense to them, that's another big thing. I think that all of those things to me are kind of like the core of what small businesses can do. I mean, being able to convey that effectively is a whole nother problem and mess. But I think that generally, if you have kind of an interesting business, if you have that kind of openness of ideas and environment, and you try to make it enjoyable and exciting, I think a lot of people resonate with that. And I think it's a natural kind of state of these small businesses is they usually have to be nimble, agile, solving interesting problems. Usually you tend to attract more eccentric, interesting people. And so, it's not something that you have to necessarily build the company in mind for. It's just something you have to really be able to advertise well and convey.
No, I think that makes sense. A follow-up question for that would be, usually these companies initially at the start don't really have a strong brand. So when they put out their job descriptions, a lot of people will just go ahead and easy apply. That's what I used to do initially myself.
Sure.
I just used to go on LinkedIn, easy apply, just because it was the easiest way to get my resumes, because I was focusing on quantity as opposed to quality. So I think it's interesting for me to know the job description is the first thing candidates see when they apply for a job. So you can't really gauge how the company will treat you. You can't really understand what kind of problems you will be solving deeply, and most of the job descriptions are generic at the end of the day, where they're looking for this unicorn candidate, and most of the candidates don't even exist. Like 80% of the skills, some of the candidates don't even have it. So it's interesting to see, how do you manage the fine line between understanding how to create a job description that will attract the right candidates, because you don't want a lot of candidates that aren't suited to a specific job just to apply, and you'll have to go through all of the resumes that don't even make sense in the first place.
Sure. You've kind of touched on a topic I really like to talk about, and that's kind of the importance in an employee's life cycle of the recruiting process itself, and how well it ties into onboarding and kind of like training and assessment and stuff like that. And really, it starts with this idea, to your point, that you should have a clear job description that articulates what you're really looking for. And then to me, this is the most important job of a recruiter, is when you have a hiring manager who comes to you and says, hey, I have this spot for my team. We need another, front end engineer. And so like, okay, great. Like, I can get the, technology that they're going to be working with, and I can get, some of the responsibilities that they're going to have. But, like, where are they going to sit in the org? Like, what does success look like? What are they going to be responsible for delivering? Right? These these kind of more specific elements of the position are really, really important to define, because one, you want to kind of understand, what that ideal, you want to define that position. Right. So you want to have a very clear understanding of what it's responsible for. What is its purpose? What is it going to do? From there, you can usually extract, what attributes, what skills, what abilities this person needs to have. And you make sure that you're assessing those through the recruiting process. Right. You want to make sure that they have that kind of baseline. And it's, to your point, like you're not always going to get the unicorn candidate that has all of those different skills and abilities. And so usually at the end of the process, you have a few different candidates that have varying, qualifications, and you can make a conscientious decision. Okay, this person's strong as far as experience, but as far as communication's a little bit weaker. This one's, and the trade-offs, but really interestingly, it plays into that employee life cycle in the aspect of, now you can say, okay, as we onboard this person, we know they're weak in this area. Let's make sure that we're training them effectively in that area, that we're paying attention to that area, that when we do kind of our weekly assessment, our bi-monthly assessments or whatever you're doing, that we're talking about progress in that area. And so that first meeting that you have to define the role becomes really important. But you also made the point that if you just see these generic, job descriptions, they're not usually that exciting. And that's another really big benefit of being very specific about what you want, is as a candidate, if you're thinking really critically about the jobs that you're applying to, you usually want to be doing a very specific thing, right? You know what you want, you know what's important to you, and you want to see that in the job description. And while a very specific job description might mean less applicants at the start, that's totally fine, because there's a good chance that the applicants that would have applied to the generic job description but are not applying to the specific job description weren't going to be people that you wanted to waste time reading their resume or talking to them anyway, because it just was not going to be a fit. And so there's so much benefit that you get from as a company, from really critically thinking, what is this position going to be? What kind of person do they want? How are we going to advertise? How are we going to attract this person? Like, what's exciting to that type of person? And again, it rolls into how you can kind of help manage and grow that employee through their life cycle as well.
No, I think I love that. I think a lot of companies don't realize that if they actually put in a lot of time in creating the right job description, they'll save up on time later on, they'll save up on cost later on, and they'll save up mental energy, like speaking to hundreds of candidates that they don't even qualify for the role. So if you put in the initial effort, you can go through saving up all those other efforts that will be put into it. So thank you so much for sharing that, James. Last question, James, it would be around the fact that you've been in the recruitment space for quite a while. You've seen a lot of companies hire. You've done your own share of hiring. What is one tip that you might have for job seekers, not for job seekers, for companies actually, to create that winning culture within their company?
Yeah. So for me, culture is, I think the single most important thing for me when it comes to culture is the ability to say no or to raise objections. I think that there's a lot of other factors out there, but if there was one that I really had to, if I could only pick one, that would be it. And you see this in so many different aspects of like best business practices. So, for example, in software engineering, you have blameless postmortems, right? And the idea is, like, you have some sort of problem that goes wrong with the system, and you all get all the engineers together to retro it. It's not about finding someone to blame and making that person feel bad. It's really trying to diagnose and understand the problem. And if you kind of have that culture of, we're not going to, single people out for being, making a mistake, or we're not going to single people out for bringing up an objection or a problem, then you can have much more like kind of open, honest conversation. You can understand the problems that come up, right? That other issue, if, for example, your boss, is suggesting, hey, we should do, X thing, and you see problems with, that path, you need to be able to speak up. And it's not to say that you're going to change your boss's mind and they're going to do something different. But there's another great author. His name's Patrick Lencioni. He's written a bunch of books, but one of the books he wrote was The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day. He leads a team at a hedge fund and had, a problem with there's the common problem of, you at your kind of mid or lower level see something that your boss doesn't see because you're closer to the problem, and they want to do, one thing, and you kind of have a feeling that that's not going to work out. If you're not able to tell them and kind of alert them to that could be really, a big disaster if you're right. And so the solution in that case is always to say, okay, look, hear everyone out, right? And make sure that everyone feels heard, but also, if that is a problem, have someone who's paying attention to that as like an issue, saying like, okay, if we're going to hire this type of person and we're going to put out this type of job description, maybe we're missing out this candidate pool that we really need to have access to, find some solutions and we can brainstorm that. It's about having a clear understanding of the problem so that it can be solved. And that openness of communication is really key to that.
I love that. I think it's essentially like a relationship. If you don't speak about issues, you're going to build in resentment. You're going to be like, oh, I'd rather go to a company where I have a voice. And then people end up leaving and companies lose on good talent just because there wasn't this openness to share their thoughts, their openness to be honest. And usually when people are honest, that's where most of the growth occurs as well. So I think I love that. I think being transparent, having that sense of openness to sharing your opinion, sharing your ideas is the key for growth for a lot of companies, especially fast-paced companies that are growing, that are fast-paced. So James, thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing your wonderful insights. It was a pleasure learning from you, learning about your memes, learning about what you've achieved along the way. And I do wish that your company that you're starting will continue to grow and make a difference in so many people's lives that you're already doing.
My pleasure, Manal. It was great talking to you, and I'm looking forward to doing more of this going forward.